What if I told you that the coffee sitting in your kitchen right now is not really coffee at all? What if the brand you trust every single morning has been quietly lying to you for years, and the proof has finally come out in a lab report that nobody wanted you to see? Stop scrolling for 1 second, because what I'm about to show you will change the way you look at your morning cup forever. If this video helps you protect your health and your money, do me one small favor. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share this with the one person in your family who drinks the most coffee, because they need to hear this before their next sip. Now let me paint the picture for you. Every single morning across Australia, millions of people wake up, walk to the kitchen, and reach for a jar or a bag of coffee they believe is pure and honest. They scoop it out, pour the hot water, breathe in that familiar smell, and start their day feeling good. But behind that comfort, behind that daily ritual, there is a scandal that most Australians have no idea about. Independent laboratory tests have revealed something that the big coffee companies have been trying to hide for years. Some of the biggest names on our supermarket shelves are not selling you real coffee. They are selling you burnt fillers, cheap chemical tricks, and low-grade beans dressed up with fancy packaging and expensive marketing. And the worst part is, most of us have been drinking this stuff for decades without ever knowing the truth. In a country where we love our cafes, where we laugh at watery American coffee, where we happily hand over $5 or $6 for a single flat white, it makes no sense that we quietly accept fake roasts and mystery blends on our supermarket shelves. Yet that is exactly what is happening. And today, I'm going to walk you through 8 specific brands that you will find in almost every Woolworths, Coles, and IGA across the country. Some of them will surprise you, some of them will make your stomach turn. And by the time we get to number 1, you will understand exactly why real coffee lovers refuse to keep these brands in their kitchens. So take a deep breath, because we are about to open a door that the coffee industry has been holding shut for a very long time. Let's begin with the brand that shaped the coffee habits of an entire generation of Australians, and honestly, not in a good way. Number 8 on our list is International Roast. If your grandparents drank instant coffee, there's a very high chance those red and gold tins were part of their kitchen. This brand has been sitting on Australian shelves since the 1960s, and for millions of families, it became the definition of what coffee is supposed to be. Cheap, fast, and always available. But here's the uncomfortable truth. International Roast is not really coffee in the way you and I would define it. It is a coffee-flavored product, and that difference matters more than you might think. The brand is owned by a giant Dutch corporation called Jacobs Douwe Egberts, one of the largest coffee processors on the entire planet. When a company handles more than 2 million tons of coffee every year, they are not thinking about flavor, aroma, or craft. They are thinking about cost per kilogram. And when cost becomes the only priority, quality is always the first thing to go. Independent research shows that International Roast is made from the lowest grade Robusta beans available on the world market. We are talking about broken beans, damaged beans, beans that no premium brand would ever touch. These leftovers are then roasted so hard, so dark, so aggressively, that the beans are basically turned into charcoal. And there's a reason for that. Burning the beans to a crisp hides everything. It hides the mold, it hides the staleness, it hides the poor quality of the source. You cannot taste what you cannot detect, and that is the whole trick. There's also something called steam treatment that gets used on these beans, a process that strips out the natural aromatic oils and leaves behind a flat, one-note bitterness that tastes almost identical from cup to cup. And here's the sad part. An entire generation of Australians grew up thinking that this harsh, burnt, rubbery taste was what coffee is supposed to be. They added milk, they added sugar, sometimes 2 spoons, sometimes 3, just to make it drinkable. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was developing beautiful cafe cultures, and Australians were being taught to hate the very drink they were consuming every day. It is a quiet tragedy, hiding in plain sight, and it starts with a red and gold tin that costs almost nothing to produce, but sells millions of units every year. Now let's move up the shelf to something that looks a lot more premium. Number 7 is Moccona. Moccona is the brand that positions itself as the classy choice. The glass jars, the freeze-dried crystals, the advertisements filled with elegant Europeans sipping coffee in golden sunlight. It feels sophisticated. It feels like the coffee you serve when guests come over. But here's the twist that most Australians do not realize. Moccona is owned by the exact same company as International Roast. Same parent, same supply chain, same procurement teams, same bean sources. The only real difference between these two products is the processing method and the marketing budget. Moccona uses freeze drying instead of spray drying, and that process does preserve a little more of the natural aroma, which is why the jar smells nicer when you first open it. But freeze drying cannot fix bad beans. It can only slow down how quickly you notice they are bad. Now here is the part that will really annoy you. The label proudly says 100% coffee, but it does not tell you the ratio of Arabica to Robusta. Industry insiders who have looked at Moccona's blends say the classic medium roast can contain up to 50% Robusta, sometimes more. Robusta is the cheap, harsh, rubbery cousin of Arabica. It has almost double the caffeine, which is why it gives you that sharp jolt, but it lacks the sweetness, the complexity, and the smoothness that make coffee actually enjoyable. Serious coffee professionals avoid Robusta in their premium blends because it tastes flat and chemical. But when your goal is to sell millions of jars at a low production cost, Robusta becomes very attractive. The origin claims are just as slippery. Moccona says it sources from sustainable farms across Africa, Asia, and South America. That sentence sounds meaningful until you realize those three regions produce about 90% of the coffee on Earth. It is like a chocolate brand saying our cocoa comes from farms that grow cocoa. It tells you absolutely nothing. Independent taste tests place Moccona near the bottom of instant coffee rankings, with reviewers describing a bitter, chemical aftertaste that stays on the tongue long after the cup is finished. That aftertaste is not a personality trait. It is the fingerprint of industrial processing at massive scale, where consistency matters more than character. Let's keep going, because it only gets more surprising from here. Number 6 is Nescafé Gold. Nescafé is the biggest coffee brand in the entire world. It is owned by Nestlé, a Swiss corporation with annual revenue that crosses $100 billion every single year. When you operate at that size, you're not competing on quality anymore. You are competing on price, distribution, and advertising power. Nescafé Gold is their premium instant line, sitting on the shelf in that shiny gold jar, promising a smooth, refined blend. Australians pay between $14 and $16 for 200 grams of it, believing they are getting something special. The truth is far less impressive. Nescafé Gold is spray-dried instant coffee made from commodity-grade beans, and the gold label is a marketing decision, not a quality guarantee. Independent analysis shows that the blend contains a heavy proportion of Robusta, with just enough Arabica added to avoid being labeled as pure Robusta. This would ruin the premium image they have spent decades building. But the real scandal goes far deeper than taste. In 2022, an investigation revealed that Nestlé had been sourcing coffee from farms in Brazil where workers were living in conditions that could only be described as modern slavery, debt bondage, terrible living conditions, wages far below the legal minimum, people trapped in situations they could not escape from. Nestlé claimed they did not know. They blamed the complexity of the supply chain. But when you are the largest coffee company on the planet, that excuse does not hold up. Not knowing becomes a choice. After the exposure, Nestlé promised better monitoring and stronger checks. Independent audits since then suggest that very little has actually changed. The same farms remain, the same practices continue, and the paperwork has just become better at hiding it. And beyond all of that, the coffee itself is thin, flat, and harsh. You are paying a premium price for industrial quality coffee, produced through a supply chain that has profited from human suffering. That is not a comfortable idea to sit with. But it is the reality behind that gold jar on the shelf. Before we continue, let me stop you right here for a moment, because if what you have heard so far has already opened your eyes, then I need your help to open more eyes too. There are millions of Australians who still have no idea what is really inside their morning cup, and this video is the only way they might find out. So if you have not already, please tap that like button right now, because every like pushes this video to more Aussie families who deserve to know the truth. Leave a quick comment with the name of the brand you have been drinking. Even one word is enough. And if you know someone who swears by their supermarket coffee, send them this video. You might just save them from years of drinking something they never actually wanted. Now let's keep going, because the next 4 brands are where things get really interesting. Number 5 is Vittoria Coffee. Vittoria is the brand that likes to sit above the crowd. The dark, moody packaging, the Italian heritage story, the promise of freshly roasted beans done the proper way. You walk into a cafe in the suburbs of Sydney or Melbourne, and you will often spot the Vittoria logo on the espresso machine. It feels legitimate. It feels like an upgrade from the instant jars. But once you look at what Vittoria actually delivers at supermarket scale, the story becomes a lot less exciting. Vittoria is owned by the Cantarella family and has been roasting in Australia since 1947. The origin story is real, and the early quality was genuinely respected. But as Vittoria grew into a national brand, supplying tens of thousands of cafes and filling supermarket shelves across the country, something had to be sacrificed. And that something was the careful control of quality at the source. Vittoria buys its beans from commercial brokers across many origins. Unlike true specialty roasters who work directly with named farms and can trace every batch, Vittoria buys blended commercial-grade beans through middlemen. Their most famous product, the Italian blend, does not tell you what beans are inside, where they came from, or when they were roasted. And this is where the biggest problem shows up. Roasted coffee has a very short shelf life. Whole beans start losing their best flavors within a few weeks. Ground coffee starts losing them within days. By the time a bag of Vittoria travels from the roaster to the warehouse to the distribution center to your local supermarket, weeks or even months have already passed. What you're brewing at home is stale, even if the original beans were decent. It could easily be 2 to 6 months past its best before you ever open the bag. Independent taste tests describe Vittoria as acceptable but forgettable. Consistent, sure, but nothing that would make a real coffee lover excited. And for a brand that charges specialty prices for their premium single origin lines, sometimes $25 to $30 for 250 grams, forgettable is simply not good enough. You're paying for a story that the coffee inside can no longer live up to. Number 4 is Lavazza, the famous Italian icon in blue and yellow packaging. Founded in Turin in 1895, Lavazza has spent more than a century building a name that means Italian coffee culture around the world. Australians see that logo and they instantly feel a sense of trust. If it is Italian and it is Lavazza, it must be good. That belief is now the most valuable asset the company owns, and they are using it to sell you something very different from what you think you're buying. Today, Lavazza is a global corporation processing more than 300,000 tons of coffee every year across multiple continents. At that scale, the romantic image of Italian artisans lovingly roasting beans becomes pure fiction. Lavazza buys commodity-grade beans from commercial brokers across South America, Africa, and Asia. Their best-selling blend, Qualita Rossa, contains a very significant amount of Robusta, and the packaging never warns you about the rubbery, bitter taste that industrial Robusta gives. This is what makes Lavazza especially frustrating. They have taken the premium position on the shelf without actually delivering premium quality inside the bag. Australians pay $12 to $18 for 250 grams of Qualita Rossa, thinking they are supporting Italian craft. In reality, you are paying for a marketing story. For the same amount of money, you could walk into a local specialty roaster in your own city, buy freshly roasted Arabica ground to your exact preference, and roasted within the last 2 weeks. You would get complete information about which farm the beans came from. That is a better deal on every level. Lavazza has also had its own image problems. Their EcoCaps pod range was heavily promoted as a sustainable, compostable option. When testing was done, it turned out those pods could only break down in special industrial composting facilities, not in a normal home compost bin. In real life, the vast majority ended up in landfill, just like every other coffee pod. That is not sustainability, that is greenwashing. And when a brand asks you to pay more because of ethics and quality, and then those claims fall apart under simple testing, the trust starts to crack. Now this next one might really surprise you. Number 3 is Campos Coffee. Campos has built a loyal following among true coffee enthusiasts across Australia. The original cafe in Newtown, Sydney, the founder story of sourcing trips to origin farms, the strong specialty coffee identity, all of it created a brand that serious coffee lovers respected. And for a long time, that respect was well earned. But then came the expansion. Campos moved aggressively into national supermarket distribution, huge corporate supply contracts, and large-scale hospitality accounts. And that kind of growth creates a problem that is almost impossible to solve. The sourcing philosophy that made Campos famous, direct relationships with farmers, small batch buying, and careful selection, cannot easily scale without heavy compromise. When bags of Campos start appearing on Woolworths shelves around the country, they enter a supply chain that cares more about shelf life than freshness. The bag of Campos you pick up at your local supermarket has probably been roasted, packaged, warehoused, and shelved over a period of weeks or even months. Even if the original beans were high-quality specialty coffee, they will not taste like specialty coffee anymore by the time you brew them at home. Independent baristas describe a noticeable drop in freshness and flavor clarity. The supermarket product is flatter, less bright, and less alive. You're still paying specialty prices, sometimes $25 to $30 per 250 grams. But you're not getting this specialty experience anymore. That is the sad truth about any specialty coffee that goes fully national at supermarket scale. The very things that made it special get lost. The founders built something real, but scale has quietly taken away the magic. Number 2 is Republica Coffee. Republica sells itself as the ethical, conscious, specialty option that just happens to be available in your local supermarket. Organic certifications, fair trade labels, single origin claims, and packaging that could easily fit inside a trendy Melbourne cafe. The prices match that premium image, usually around $20 to $25 for 250 grams, and Australians buy it feeling good about their decision. That good feeling is being used against you. Real specialty coffee and national supermarket distribution are almost impossible to combine. True specialty coffee is produced in limited quantities, sourced carefully, and roasted in small batches. You cannot do that and stock hundreds of supermarkets. Republica solves this contradiction by quietly lowering what specialty means. They lean heavily on the organic certification as if it proves quality, but organic only refers to farming methods. You can grow terrible coffee organically, and you can grow exceptional coffee using conventional methods. The organic label tells you nothing about how your coffee will actually taste. The single origin claims are also weaker than they seem. A bag might simply say Colombia or Ethiopia, without naming the region, the farm, the processing method, or the varietal. That is like saying Australian wine and expecting the buyer to know exactly what they are getting. Colombia is a huge country with dozens of very different coffee-growing regions, each with its own flavor identity. Just saying Colombia is not real information. It is marketing dressed up as transparency. Their roasting facility also operates on a semi-industrial scale, producing hundreds of kilograms per batch. That is not artisan roasting. That is commercial production with an artisan style label. Even the fair trade certification, which sounds so ethical, has been under criticism for years. The minimum guaranteed prices are often still below what would give farmers a real living wage, and there have been repeated cases of mixing non-certified coffee. For $25 per 250 grams, you could support a genuine local roaster in your own city instead of paying for a supermarket brand story. Let me pause here again for a quick second, because we are getting close to number one, and I want to say something honest before we get there. If this video has already made you rethink even one brand in your kitchen, then it has done something valuable. Do not let this information stop with you. Right now, pause for 3 seconds, tap the like button if you have not, and drop a single word in the comments, honest, and I will know you have been paying attention. If you want more videos like this one, uncovering what really hides behind the labels in your supermarket, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. Your support is the only reason I can keep making these videos, and every subscriber makes the next investigation possible. All right, now let's get to number one, because this is the brand you probably never expected to see at the very top of this list. Number one is Starbucks. At home. Yes, Starbucks. Over the past few years, Starbucks at-home products have quietly spread across Australian supermarkets. The ready-to-drink cans, the Via instant packets, the bags of whole bean and ground coffee. Australians are buying these products in growing numbers, drawn in by the familiar green logo and the feeling of bringing a cafe experience home. That feeling is almost entirely an illusion. Starbucks did not build its empire on the quality of its coffee. It built its empire on sugar, comfort, and atmosphere. The caramel macchiatos and pumpkin spice lattes are dessert drinks with a splash of coffee flavor. The market research behind them focuses on sweetness and ritual, not on the taste of coffee itself. And the at-home range carries that same philosophy straight onto supermarket shelves. The Via Instant range is marketed as cafe quality, but in reality, it is finely ground and freeze-dried instant coffee made from commercial-grade beans. Specialty coffee experts see dark roasting as a way to hide flaws in the beans. The darker you roast, the more the origin character disappears into a general burnt bitterness. Starbucks has built its entire flavor identity around that heavy roast, treating every origin, every varietal, and every farm the same way. It is consistent, yes, but it wipes out everything that makes coffee interesting. The canned, ready-to-drink versions raise even bigger concerns. Independent testing shows that a single can of Starbucks Frappuccino can contain between 20 and 35 grams of sugar. That is the same amount of sugar as a can of soft drink. Australians who grab one thinking they are choosing a healthier option are being misled. You are drinking a dessert, not a coffee. And the pricing is honestly shocking. Starbucks. At-home products are priced at the level of true specialty coffee, even though the beans are commercial-grade, dark-roasted commodity. There is no version of this deal where you actually win as a customer. The best independent roasters in Australia openly refuse to consider Starbucks part of the real specialty coffee world. The roast is wrong, the sourcing is unclear, and the brand's real purpose has always been sweetness and comfort, not craft. For a country that has developed one of the greatest cafe cultures in the world, buying Starbucks at home is honestly a step backwards. Now that we have gone through all 8 brands, let's talk about what you can actually do about this, because I do not want to leave you feeling hopeless. The good news is that Australia is home to one of the most incredible independent coffee roasting scenes on the planet. Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, even smaller towns across the country. All of them have small local roasters who are doing everything that big brands only pretend to do. These roasters buy directly from farmers. They roast in small batches. They print the roast date clearly on the bag. They share detailed information about the origin, the farm, the variety, and the processing method. And they deliver coffee that was harvested within the last 12 months, roasted within the last few days, and shipped straight to your door. That is what real coffee looks like. That is what your morning cup was always supposed to be. And the price difference is much smaller than most people think. A bag of genuinely exceptional specialty coffee from a local roaster usually costs between $25 and $40 for 250 grams. That might sound higher at first, but think about what you're actually getting. Fresh coffee and complete traceability. Compare that to $25 for a bag of stale supermarket beans with a vague origin label and no roast date, and suddenly the local roaster becomes the smartest choice. Here's what I want you to do this week. Find one local roaster in your city or nearest big town. Almost every one of them has a website. Order a small bag of their recommended espresso blend or filter coffee. Check the roast date printed on the bag and use it within 3 weeks. Then brew a cup and compare it side by side with whatever supermarket brand you have been drinking. That one comparison will do more than any video I could ever make. It will change your standards forever. Real coffee does not taste bitter. Real coffee does not need spoonfuls of sugar just to be drinkable. Real coffee is sweet, complex, sometimes fruity, sometimes chocolatey, sometimes nutty, always alive. Everything we have exposed today, the industrial Robusta, the burnt beans hiding low quality, the stale ground coffee sold as fresh, all of it survives because most Australians have never been shown what coffee should taste like. Now you know. 8 brands, 8 warnings, 8 reasons to make a different choice the next time you stand in that coffee aisle. Marketing is not coffee. Branding is not quality. And when something is unusually cheap, someone else is always paying the real cost. Whether that is the workers stuck at the bottom of an unfair supply chain or you missing out on the truly beautiful drink that coffee can be. So the next time you walk down that aisle, walk past those familiar jars and bags with your eyes wide open. Take one small step towards a local roaster, one small step towards the real thing, and I promise you will never look at coffee the same way again. Tell me in the comments which of these 8 brands shocked you the most. Are you still keeping any of them in your kitchen after watching this? Be honest, because your comment might be the exact push that another viewer needs to finally make the change. And if you want more videos exposing what is really hiding on Australian supermarket shelves, subscribe now, hit the bell, and stay with me. There's so much more we still need to uncover together. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.